11 candidates, 10 Democrats and 1 Republican, are hoping to succeed Joseph Kennedy in Congress this November. Kennedy has his sights set on beating incumbent Ed Markey for the U.S. Senate seat instead. One of the candidates running for the House seat held by Kennedy is Jake Auchincloss, the Newton Democrat who is a Harvard grad, former Marine, and current city councilor in Newton, told me during a virtual edition of Inside Government on Thursday that one of the issues facing this country is not only to create a strong economy, but one that is fair as well.
Born and educated in Newton, Massachusetts. I am currently a city councilor in my hometown of Newton, formerly a Marine officer. I commanded Marines in Afghanistan and then in Panama. I've worked in business for 4 years at a startup and a Fortune 100, and I've also worked as the director of a nonprofit. So I've got experience across local government, military, business, and nonprofit.
Now, if you say Newton, assuming you went to one of the public schools, are you a lion or a tiger?
I'm a proud tiger, graduated from Newton North in 2006. And my wife and I, now with a 1-month-old, our first child, are living right next to Cabot School, and we're looking forward to raising our family in Newton as well.
The military, talk about that for a second. What exactly was your role?
Yeah, so the Marine Corps really has a deep personal connection for me. My grandfather was the son of Russian refugees from the pogroms. He was, in 1942, a poor Jewish kid in Chelsea, Massachusetts, and he walks into a Marine recruiting office, tries to sign up to go to the South Pacific, and they send him to college to study engineering. Totally changes his life, and indirectly changes mine as well. And so I've always thought of the Marines with a very special fondness. And when I graduated from Harvard in 2010, we were in the middle of the surge to Afghanistan, and I felt like I owed something back to the service and to the country that had been so good to my own family. So I joined in 2010 as an infantry officer, commanded a platoon of Americans in Helmand province in 2012. We were patrolling through 3 Taliban-controlled villages. And then I came home and I joined the Special Operations branch of the Marine Corps and commanded a multinational special operations mission to Panama, working with Colombians and Panamanians to interdict drugs that were flowing up through South America.
Interesting background, that's for sure. Do you find your background comes into play? You're currently a city councilor in Newton. Probably doesn't come into play that much in that role, but if you were to become a congressman?
So it's interesting. Being a Marine officer is very poor training for politics, because as a Marine officer, people do what you command. It's a very hierarchical structure. As a politician, it doesn't work like that. You gotta collaborate. And that's really what I've made my name as in Newton, as someone who is a collaborative, results-oriented person. Over the last 6 years, rising to be the chair of the Transportation Committee, and topping the ticket in my last re-election, I have made a name for myself as somebody who gets stuff done on transportation, on housing, on the environment, on immigration. And I do that by working together with fellow city councilors, with the mayor, and with neighbors. And there's really no better training ground for Washington, D.C. than local government, because local government fundamentally still works. It's fundamentally still focused on results, not ideology. And it is close to the people. And when I'm out walking my dog, when I'm at the grocery store, I will hear from my constituents if I'm messing up. And that type of visceral connection, I think, is what we're missing with our representatives now in D.C.
That edition of Inside Government can be seen in its entirety on North TV's government channel, Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 23, beginning Friday, May 15th. You can also stream that program at any time on any device by becoming a North TV Insider by visiting the new NorthTV.net website and clicking the words North TV Insider at the top of the screen. The lone Republican currently seeking to succeed Joseph Kennedy in Congress this November stopped by our North TV studio on Thursday. Julie Hall is a former Attleboro City Councilor and state representative candidate. I asked her about being a Republican and appealing to liberal voters in the north end of our district.
I tend to be and this is no surprise to anybody because I do have a track record, if you would, tend to be a little bit more moderate on some of the issues. I'm very conservative in terms of, the Second Amendment, very conservative on that. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm running and I'm the military is, I see that a lot of people that have served in the military and some lives lost their lives in the military for this country. And, frankly, we want our country back. We want our flag to be respected. And those things are very important to me. I don't know why those all of a sudden became Republican issues and not everybody in the world, because everybody in the United States should be respectful of where we came from and what that flag means. I could go on about that because that's one of my issues. And I think that, people have tried to use that symbol, as they do with other symbols, and try to say it means something else that it doesn't mean. To me, it's always meant a hope. We haven't always done everything right. We don't, we have bad behaviors. Had I been born 20, 30, 40 years ago, I wouldn't even be able to vote. And if I tried to vote, they would have struck me down. And if I tried to go in the military, I could have been shot for trying to go in the military. So we've come a long way on a lot of different issues. So to me, that flag gives us the hope. It's a symbol of what could be, not necessarily what has been. So that's kind of where I look at it from the American flag. And the Democrats. So, yeah, I think that out of a list, if you were to sit me down with some other candidate from another party, we're going to probably have 4 to 5 things that we both agree on. I sincerely believe that. And then there's going to be some issues that are, strictly liberal issues or strictly, conservative issues. Not Democrat, not Republican issues. Conservative and liberal issues. I think that we see things sometimes the same way. I would say, do we want to fix the schools? Do we want our children to have a great education? Absolutely we do. How I would go about it as a Republican in my fiscal thought process and how a Democrat might go about that could be the different way, but we really both want the same thing. So I think we would run into, that's where I think I appeal to people. I tend to be more liberal in terms of social issues, social types of things. There are some in both sides of the party that are on a far extreme, either way. And if you answer that question like, that they want a yes or they want a no. And things aren't yes or no. Things are gray. And if you're not willing to have that discussion in the middle, in the partisan side, in that little bit of space that we have, you're not going to be, in my mind, a good legislator because you're not going to listen to the things that are important. You have to listen and you have to have an open mind. That's really hard. Everybody comes with their biases. But one of the things I've told myself is I'm going to try very, very hard to not let my biases get in the way. I think I'm pretty open-minded. My mind is trained, if you would, from being in the military to look at all the alternatives and not just look at the one I think is the best. Because if I ever went into my boss and said, I think you should do this because I just have a gut feeling, not going to work, not going to be happy. I had to sit there and explain my thought process, and he would have said, or she would have said, have you looked at all the alternatives? What are my options? So to me, I want to be able to deliver that kind of an answer to the public. Here are your options. This is not the one option that I chose for you. Here are the options to choose from, and then we have to try very hard to choose the best option that's going to work for the most people.